Welcome back to Cash and Sass, the podcast where we ditch the shame, talk real numbers, and build bold, bankable wealth without sacrificing who we are. I'm your host, Lisa Marie, fractional CFO, money mentor, and the sassy wealth queen behind Transcendent Wealth Co. And if you're ready to scale with strategy, own your own power, and finally feel wealthy, I can't even think, in every sense of the word, then you're in the right place. Today's guest is here to blow up one of the biggest money lies in business, that making more money will solve your cash flow problems. I am here for blowing this up. Leanne Ozaine is a profit coach and the creator of the 2-number method. She made over $1 million in revenue and still nearly lost everything. What she discovered changed how she approaches business money forever. We're talking profit, psychology, and why high revenue with a low piece is not success. So as I always say, let's dive right into it. Thank you very much for being a guest. And I just want to dive straight into it. You said you made over $1 million and still had zero profit. What was the moment that you realized something was seriously wrong?
Ugh. It was a really dark and stormy night in my life. My husband came to me, and I've been on speaking tour. I've been, just looking like my business was nothing but successful. And he'd been hearing me talk about how much money my business was making and all the new people we'd hired and all the things. And he came to me and asked me for some money. And I had to tell him that I didn't have any to give him. And then he looked at me and said, with a bunch of shame in his countenance, "How on earth did you make over $1 million this year and you can't help me pay our mortgage? Where did $1 million go, Leanne?" That was the moment that I knew that I could no longer keep up with the Joneses, so to speak, in business. And I knew I needed to solve the problem that was in front of me, which was answering that question. Where on earth did $1 million?
Okay, so I'm going to ask a question because this is how we do this. We see how it's going to go. What are some of the steps that you took to figure out where that money went? Like, I know as a fractional CFO and a money mentor where some of it was going to go. Back into the business, taxes, got it. And so often I tell my clients that there are money leaks. And if we're not doing things in alignment and making sure that we're intentional with what's going on, money's going to leak. And so what were some of the steps that you took to figure out what happened to the $1 million?
Yeah, great question. Actually, it was the next day. I walked into a Chase Bank because I'd stayed up all night that night trying to answer the question. And what I knew is that I hadn't been lazy. I knew that I had been doing all of the things that smart business people are told to do, like increase revenue, make more, 10x your top line. Like, I'd done all that, right? But what I didn't know is where the money had gone. I couldn't see it. And my books didn't show me that either, because books show you where money went by categories and it doesn't show you the results, right? So the steps I took before I could know how to articulate that is I went into the Chase Bank the next day. I went up to a teller and I was like, "Hey, I need a bank statement for every single account that I have with you, every account, credit card, line of credit." And I went line by line, highlighter by highlighter, and asked myself one question as I looked for the answer of where on earth $1.1 million went. And the question I asked myself in the kind of the throes of this disaster was, knowing what I know now, when I look at these dollars that left my bank account, would I spend that again in a heartbeat? Yes or no? And so I was just kind of brutal about it. I wanted to know where my money had gone, and what my bank account records showed me that my books would not show me was something very different than I knew I needed to know. And that is, what was the intent of what I'd spent money on and what was the result? And what I started to see as I did something I now call my yes test, where I was like, would I spend this money again in a heartbeat? When it passed its yes test, I started to realize that that was actually a good investment in my business. If it made me multiple dollars back and I would spend the money again in a heartbeat, now that I already had the results of spending that money, then I knew that that money was an investment. And then everything else wasn't actually a business investment. It was a business spending with a good story. But I'd been telling myself all along, yep, just like everybody else does, that all the dollars I spent on my business are a good investment. They're not. And so I really shifted my thinking over several days by just looking at my real cash flow and asking myself those brutal questions. And the truth sets you free. So when I got clear about those things and could see the difference between my true business investments, which were dollars that came back with friends, right? True business investments versus all of the waste and all of the just business spending that I had allowed to happen in the name of it takes money to make money and growing my business, right? Once I got clear on that, then I could see it and I could fix it. And I did.
Yeah, and see, I love that. I'm gonna take a minute to talk about that because I tell my clients all the time that yes, it's important to keep your books. Yes, whether, whatever software that is you use, or if it's a spreadsheet, absolutely, positively, yes. And it only tells you part of the story.
Yeah.
And what I tell people is not only does it tell you just the categories, but it tells you what left after it left.
Yeah. Yeah.
It gives you yesterday, it gives you last month. So it's not truly giving you a true picture of your cash flow in the current moment so that you can actually know where in the hell your money is going. And you did something that I actually have my clients do when they first come to me and we're building the money roadmap and we're looking at the expenses. And because when I build that money roadmap, I'm like, this is going to help us be able to see your cash flow. And they're like, but I have the P&L. The P&L's past. I want in the moment. I want to know exactly what is expected to be coming out of your bank and when, or your credit card and when. We need all those things together so that we can see what your monthly reoccurring expenses are. Because some of those expenses, yes, you're going to want, and yes, they're necessary. I mean, I don't know about y'all, but I love my email system. I love all of it being together so I don't have to do it. I love having my VA take care of all those things so I don't have to. My ROI on that is my time and my energy, and Lord knows my aggravation because me and Canva do not get along. Okay?
Yeah.
And being able to know all of those things in current time is really important. And I do the same thing. Like a lot of times it's the one-off expenses that get us. We're not looking at how much in office supplies or trips or any of those one-off things. Or we're signing up for multitude of memberships that we're not even remembering some of the other ones we're a part of. And so it's important to be able to see that. And I'll have them pull, and they laugh at me. They're like, "No, I'll just pull up on a statement. And I'll just nope, no, 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 no. We're killing trees here. We're killing trees." And they're like, "What?" I
Here's
want
an
you to
ink.
print the last 3 months, at least the last 3 months, paper. Go get highlighter. Pretend the internet does not exist. Print them. Burn some trees. This is what we've got to do. And then I have them highlight because I used to paper. You're paying attention and you're seeing and you start highlighting, and we have these categories of how much out to eat and whether this is personal or business, out to eat, whatever. And you start looking and now I love the fact of how you asked that question because that's taking it a step is like, okay, was this necessary? Did this bring me an ROI? Was this an investment or did I just go and buy to go buy? Right. And that's looking at the underlying thing of it because that's how you find leaks. I mean, that is how you find them. And so I agree. It's just so important. I love the fact that somebody else was talking about it, not just me. It's so important to have that, right? But you can't have it by itself. You've got to have them together, right? Because it paints a whole big picture. Why does traditional finance advice and this is something I've been wanting to ask you just because I think it is. But why does traditional financial advice fail business owners so badly?
Oh, the main reason is because our culture, current culture is two things. We are consumers, number one, and consumers grow up and become business owners. So we're consumers, number one. And it is so clear that we are trained from the day we come out of the womb to spend money and that we've got to have everything we've got to have and we've got to have it now. And so when little girls and boys go from being little girls and boys into like being entrepreneurs, that hard wiring is in there. So there's that piece. And so a lot of business advice is tailored around the idea of if you just go out and make more money is going to solve all of your problems. No, 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 no. More money actually creates more problems if you don't know how to direct it, right? And the more we make, the more we have to spend to make it. So, what I like to kind of equate it to is okay, yeah, great. So, you have a successful business. So, which business do you want to be? Do you want to be the business that I just worked with last week that has about $600,000 of revenue and they have $300,000 of profit? Do you want to be that business? Or would you like to be the business that makes $400,000 a year and has $300,000 of revenue? So business number two has to make a lot less to keep a lot more. And in our psychology and in our habits with money, we don't believe that. And so we just believe if we just make more money, make more money, make more money, that it's going to solve our financial problems. And then the smart people, like the C-suite people, will come alongside and say, well, if you're not profitable, then you need to work on your margin. Or if you're not profitable, you just need to, make more money. Or the CPAs, when I was having my problems, CPAs were like, you should probably cut expenses. That's all gimmick. What's actually the issue in the advice is that it's rooted in a deeply held belief that if we just make more money, all of our financial problems will go away. And it just simply doesn't work because the more we make, the more we have to make to keep it.
Yeah. And I'm part of the C-suite, and I actually agree with you, so that's funny, but,
You and me both.
um, the part that I always tell people is, if you don't know how to manage the money you have now, when you go from 100,000 or 50,000 to 100,000 or 100,000 to 500,000, you are not going to be able to manage the 500,000. It doesn't matter if it's 500,000 million, you're not gonna be able to manage it. You're still going to be broke because all it is whatever you're doing at that current moment is going to be amplified. So it's not going to answer, it's not going to be the answer. I tell my clients and I tell other people here on the podcast all the time, and you've heard me say this, I want to help you. You're making the money now. I want to help you manage it so you can multiply it. I want you to be able to make it and keep it and then multiply it, right? Because we want to make an impact. I work with the ones that want to make an impact. We want to give back to the world. In order to do that, you've got to be keeping more of what you're making. Now, as you keep more, right, and you do the good, you're naturally going to bring in more. But the opposite of what Leanne's talking about is what we're doing is we're chasing more.
Mhm.
I have to go make more, so I'm chasing more. And so we have to switch that mindset piece. And again, I'm one of the ones that will tell you mindset and management go hand in hand. You cannot have one without the other. It ain't gonna work.
Right.
I promise it's
Right.
not gonna work.
Right.
But instead of chasing it, we need to look at what we're doing and what can we keep of what we're doing, and then we can have more come in, because if we're not handling what we have already, then bringing more is not going to be the answer. We're just going to constantly be chasing more and more and more. And you're so right about that. And it, I think that that's the reason why it's such a dangerous advice, because I've heard it. Like, you just need to go do more, or you just need to manifest more, or you need to go do this. And then you start feeling like you're not doing enough.
Mhm.
And then you get burnt out, which is why I think it's such dangerous advice. Um, or you just start thinking, "Okay, this just isn't for me," right?
Or I'm a failure, or I'm
Mhm.
a fraud. And then you get into your head and you don't even know how
Hello.
to see the forest through the trees. Yeah. I always tell people, listen, if you have a business and you don't have profit, you can't stand confidently in your skin. You just can't. It violates everything we know to be true about business ownership. Like, we know in our guts. And when our employees are making more money than the business owner, there's a real problem, right? Like the business owner who just can't pay themselves, or they're putting all their money into investing in the business or other people, but they go home at night and they can't answer the very basic questions to their spouse, like I did, right? There's an element there of um, imposter syndrome and a lot of shaming, self-shaming. And you know this well as well when you work with your clients, that that's a big thing to help somebody unravel. But as soon as I start to see people really working with my 2-number method or moving towards actual profitability, that just does something in your brain. It does something in your psychology. It does something in your mindset that listening to something or reading something simply can't do. It affirms that your business is legitimate and that you're doing the right thing. You just need to do more of it.
Right, right, right. How do entrepreneurs accidentally scale their money problems instead of solving them?
Well, what I see is they believe what I call the lie of the land. And the lie of the land is that if we just make more money, our problems are going to go away. And so we invest in making more money without knowing how to keep it. And so that lie keeps us in a perpetual hamster cycle or hamster wheel of chasing more and exhausting ourselves. Whereas the idea of just pausing, like I actually think as a culture, a business culture, it's so much simpler right now to just say yes to growth. And it's so easy to say that because it's what's expected. But what we actually need to do is pause growth and take a moment and stop and go, what is going on in my business? What is this business about? What do I really want out of it? And how can I get that? We can't get that with non-profitable businesses. Like it goes into every facet of entrepreneur's life. Like if we don't have a profitable business, or you're trying to spend all your profit to avoid a tax bill, which is just, we may not have time to unpack that. But if you go down that path, you show no income and try to buy a house. Try to get the financing that you need for the rest of your life. These two things go hand in hand. And I just think it's one of those cycles that perpetuates instead of bolstering and watching a family as a result of a business begin to flourish. Human flourishing is possible when there's a profitable business. And without that, it's a lot of pretending. And that is dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah, very much so. Very much so. You've talked about and mentioned the 5 money instincts. Can you tell us and walk us through those and how business owners and the listeners here can spot theirs?
So the first one is they all start with the letter H. The first one is who I call the hero. The hero actually, and every one of these instincts is usually coming from our upbringing. So the hero is that person who gives discounts to everybody that has a sob story, and they can't say no to free work with family, friends, or people from churches. So the hero prioritizes really being liked over being paid fairly. So they typically, blur that line between business and personal finances, especially when somebody is needing help. So the hero instinct drives a business owner to make really quick financial decisions based on emotion and will actually sacrifice the growth of the business to provide immediate relief. So the hero instinct is actually stronger in men, I find, than in women, but we see it in women as well.
Right,
The
right.
the next one is the hunter. And this is very, very common in solopreneurs. We see this specifically with people who really are kind of in the growth phase of their business. That hunter instinct chases every new opportunity and every shiny new object. So they are that person, that business owner who likes to start projects or start coaching programs or something like that, and they don't finish them. So in the hunter instinct, their business revenue really tends to fluctuate wildly because they're constantly focusing their shift to something else. They kind of chase the shiny new object. So that hunter's instinct when they're running a business truly believes that they're just one big launch or one big client or one big deal away from solving all of their problems. And so these hunter types tend to have pretty impressive revenue, but their bank account stays really empty because their money is flowing towards chasing opportunity. Does that make sense?
Mm. Yeah, yeah.
The next one is the hoarder. And that hoarder is a personality or instinct that really holds on to cash obsessively. I picture the hoarder as somebody who wrings their hands about every financial decision they have to make because they're really afraid to spend even on really important business investments. So they're that personality or that instinct that is super nervous about hiring help and creating leverage like you did with your VA. Because even if they're overwhelmed, they don't want to see their business get hurt and they're worried about being able to afford it. So they have these default beliefs that help them and hurt them at the same time, where they're like, well, what if there's an emergency? So they hoard money, and they think it's better to be safe than sorry. So that hoarder is less obvious. I find the hoarder more with people who have lived through really hard business experiences, and life has taught them really hard lessons. And so they're really afraid. And that fear really drives how they make business decisions. And then the next one, we've got just two more. The next one is the hater. This one is super strong, believe it or not. This is super strong in men. I see it more in men than women. And that hater instinct believes that money is dirty. And really, they won't say it out loud, but they really think that wealthy people are greedy snobs. So the hater, when they're owning a business, subconsciously doesn't want to be associated with money and doesn't want to be seen as wealthy. And so they sabotage their business by undercharging for services. So if they should tell a client, "Hey, I'm $200 an hour," they're going to have internal friction that's like, I don't think I can't say that. And so they tend to consistently undercharge for services, and they actually feel shame and guilt when they're charging what they're worth. So their pattern is fairly easy to spot. I'm sure you see it all the time. They avoid money conversations. Like if a client hasn't paid their bill, they'll avoid going to the client and saying, "Hey, where's my money?" Right. And then the other big characteristic of the hater instinct is they will over deliver to compensate for charging too much. So this instinct is actually really, really strong in today's entrepreneurial market. We may not have time to talk about why, but I see this one a lot. And then the last is the one I call the hot shot. So the hot shot is interesting. I know you can imagine some people as I describe this to you. The hot shot doesn't want to say they're a hot shot. They would be embarrassed. Like when I teach this at a conference, people are like, "I'm really embarrassed to admit it, but I'm like the hot shot." I'll just say it for everybody. I'm like the hot shot. So the hot shot has a tendency to spend money to look successful, even when they are barely profitable. So this is an instinct. This is a hardwired programming. And we usually learn this by watching parents go into a debt cycle to keep up with the Joneses. Like it comes from our childhoods. So that hotshot will spend money to look good. So they buy the big trucks and they have all the fancy tools and they have the beautiful office and they have the Mac computers, right? But they're secretly drowning financially. So the hot shots, that instinct takes a business owner down the road of justifying every purchase as it's a write-off. And they really, truly believe that if they spend more time perfecting their image, then people will do business with them. So those behaviors and patterns are just what I see all the time in my practice. And those are the 5. What do you
I
think of
love
them?
that because I love that because actually the hunter and the hoarder are normally the two that I'll say that I see a lot, but normally it's with the women because again, the hunter is the one that spends and is chasing every opportunity, so they're
Yes.
spending money faster than it's coming in.
Yes.
And then the hoarder is holding on to it, but still saying they're broke
Yeah.
because they're afraid it's going to just disappear. I've
Yes.
actually had people come to me and go, "I don't know how much money I have. I don't know how much is for taxes. I don't know how much." And like they're just afraid to touch the money to do anything with it because they don't know and they've got it all lumped in one account. And I open it up and because I get access to their account, I go to their account and there's $300,000 sitting in the bank account. And I'm like, okay, I now
Okay.
know what I'm looking at, right? And
You're a
I don't
hoarder.
judge. There is no judging, right?
No.
This is legit how people's brains work. She
Yes.
was petrified to touch any of it because she wasn't sure how much she needed to keep for taxes, and because it was all in one account, she
Mhm.
wasn't going to do anything except the basic necessity.
Yeah.
Like she's on payroll. She wasn't paying herself an owner distribution, which I'm happy to say she is now.
Good.
Um, she wasn't doing those things, and so I was like, "Okay, this is where we're gonna start. We're going to do this." And now we have this beautiful system where where she is paying herself earned distribution as well as already being on payroll, right?
Good.
And she's doing the and now she knows because we have that says she knows how much money is for the tax has been put away for the tax because we're putting it into a different account. But then, like you said, you've got that hunter, which I love these two analogies because those I circled those two because I was like, those two are the ones I see. And I think Hunter and Hot Shot kind of
They
commingle
kind of,
together a little bit.
yeah, they're kind of kissing cousins. They are.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
they're like really kissing cousins because they're showing off and they're on there. I made 7 figures on this launch and I have this Chanel bag and I have this. And again, another example, the person come to me and I'm like, okay, you're saying you're a 7-figure coach. Where's the
and
money? What has
Marie?
happened is she's taking loans out to pay her team. They're not pay to pay her team to do the next launch because she's spending the money faster than she get. No shit. I'm not. I swear. I swear.
My.
It happened within the second year I was in business, and I'm entered in my 10th year. It came to me, and I looked, and I went. And again, no judging. And when I saw what she was doing, I was like, okay, we need to have a conversation, right? And for y'all know me. I do it with love. I come from a big heart, but I also don't give any BS. Like, I'm telling it like it is, okay? Southern, perimenopause, all those things is just there. But I told her, I said, we have to have a conversation. You can't keep doing it this way. One, it's one thing if you're lying to everybody else. Fine, dandy, whatever. You can lie on social media all you want. But you're lying to yourself. And is this how you want to do your business? Do you want to have to go and get one of those Stripe loan things that's taking money out every single day or every single week?
They're horrible. Yeah.
Right?
They're
for
horrible.
the revenue. And therefore, you're having to do that so that you can launch because you were spending faster than you got it. And she was like, no, I don't want to. And it's like, okay, then this is what we need to do. Y'all, I don't work with her anymore because she says she knows she didn't want to, but she really wasn't at a place that she was ready to make the changes because she thought I was going to wave a magic wand and it was going to be all fixed, which in reality, what I asked her to do was what me and Leanne talked about at the beginning of this. Go pull your bank statements, go pull those credit card statements. And she was like, oh, well, you do that for me. No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
Mm-mm.
I work with you. Okay? And I do a lot for you, right? I help build the system and I build it. However, you've got to do that part because if you don't, nothing I will suggest, nothing that we will talk about, you will mind-wise, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but mind-wise, you'll even be willing to do because you're not seeing because you didn't look at the statements. And I know this because like Leanne, I had to do the same thing. My first year, I made more money than I had ever made working corporate. I wasn't at 6 figures yet, but I made more money than I had ever made at corporate. And y'all, I was broke. Now, I was used to being broke, okay? But I didn't understand why I was still broke, meaning why was there no money in the account? What the hell was going on?
Yep.
Okay?
Yep.
Lisa had to pull bank statements. And what happened is Lisa decided to pay herself a hot shot. And within and I did it actually for the first 2 years, had to rein myself back in that second year. Now I don't do that. But y'all, I own more Judy Blue jeans than I probably should ever have to own. Okay. Calling myself in. Telling it like it is. Again, yes, I'm a money mentor. Yes, I'm a fractional CFO. And guess what? Yes, I'm human. I was used to being broken. Now I had money. So by God, I was going to treat myself. I could never go buy jeans before. I couldn't buy jeans that fit me right before. I could afford these $60 jeans. So by God, I'm going to go get them. I didn't buy them all at one time. However, over the course of a year.
Sounds like you were having fun.
I was ordering them online, having them shipped, delivered, and again, $50 to $60 a pop.
No.
And for the record, I own like 12. I didn't buy them all at one time. It was cross.
This is a safe
here,
place.
and then the
We can,
second year, I was like, no more jeans. I went to shorts.
especially where you live, that makes more sense.
But still, I don't need 15 pairs of jean shorts. Okay. I love them. I do. I wear them. I've gotten rid of, I had more than that. I got rid of a bunch. And I'll be honest, but again, that's where the honesty comes in, right? I can be honest without judging myself. Okay. I can be honest and say, wait, what, like I can tell you now, it could, because been there, done that. And part of us switch from one to the other too. Like me, I was used to being broke. I was used to not being able to go get those things, right? I was on food stamps. I was barely making ends meet. And now I was making money. Well, shit, I want what I want.
Yep.
Why not? Okay. And there needs to be intentionality to that.
Totally.
And do you still want to feel like you're broke? Do you still don't want to have the money in the bank? My answer was no. Do you want immediate gratification or do you want long-term wealth? You know, do you want to act like the rich or do you want to truly be wealthy? Because I believe being rich and being wealthy are two different things. I want the long sustainable wealth, which is where my wealth codes came in. Similar to your 5 money instincts. We're going to have to talk about this because my 5 wealth codes is spiritual, emotional, mental, physical, and financial. And if we're not in alignment and wealthy in those 5 areas, and I'm not talking about money because here financial is last, okay? I'm talking about how we're spending our time, how we're spending our energy, what we're doing, who we work with, all the things. If we're out of alignment, then there's going to be a leak. And it could be a cash leak, or it could be a time leak, or it could be an energy leak, or it could be an emotional leak. And yes, then it leads to the money leaks. And that's how I work with my clients. It's like you do. You're probably looking at, okay, which one are you? And those lead to the wealth code leaks, like clear as day. I can see how they lead into that. And that's what being able to recognize that, right? And when we're out of alignment, especially. And so that's where I bring it in and say, okay, how we need to look at this and be honest with yourself. Like I said, you can lie to me, you can lie to whoever, but you got to be honest with yourself. And you have to be willing to look at it. Otherwise, none of it's going to matter anyway.
Totally.
Right? I mean, I could have told my CPA or whatever, no, you look at it. And they've been like, okay, whatever. Why? It doesn't affect me. I'm still going to do your taxes. I'm still going to give you your P&L and your money's already gone.
Yep. Totally.
I mean, it has to be us to make the change.
Totally. And we have to be willing to step into, like I always tell my kids, you can't always choose your first thought. Your first thought is what comes into your brain, but you can choose your second thought. And I know that's mothering, but it's also like self-direction where there's an element of like, okay, my first thought and these instincts, like we were talking about, those are those first thought knee-jerk reactions. Like, okay, image is everything. You know, nobody's going to do business with me if I don't have this certain look. That's your first thought. But what I find when I'm working with business owners, we're really addressing like, what do you actually believe? And I know you see this too. What we actually believe and what we actually value is where our money flows. And so that belief,
what we focus on, we create more of. Yes, ma'am.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so what is really hard to do for any human is disrupt your pattern thinking and to choose a second thought or choose a different thought. So I like with these instincts, there's nothing wrong with being that person that wants to hustle and drum up more business and grow their business. There's nothing wrong with that instinctually. That's just that instinct thought that's going to take us. It's that first thought thinking like, okay, I don't have to be taught this. This is how I'm going to behave. But sometimes we find ourselves backed into a corner and choosing that second thought or creating that second thought and believing it and walking it out is where we see meaningful change happen for people. For sure with myself. Like I had to get to the place when I was kind of going through what I describe as my $1,100,000 disaster. Like it was a disaster. It looked good on the outside, but it was a disaster. And I had to get really clear, Lisa, that all dollars in my business every dollar I spent was actually not a good business investment. And I'm a CFP, like I know how to manage money. Like I manage millions and millions of dollars of people's money. And so I'm naturally wired towards thinking about investment. So the second thought I had to think of was no, a lot of the money that is running through my business, because I look at the result of it, is actually waste. And when I see that it's waste, I mean, it may be necessary, but it's not an investment. It's not a dollar spent that's going to bring multiple dollars back for every dollar I spend. And I still have to coach myself around that. I do. Where my natural instinct is to be like to spend money and try to grow it. But
Mhm.
spending money isn't how we grow money. That's not how that
No,
works, right?
no.
So these instincts, all five of them, have both strengths and weaknesses to them. And
Yeah.
the reason I talk about them is their default beliefs and their first thoughts, right? But we
Mhm.
can choose a second thought, and
Right.
the discipline of really choosing that second thought begins to change your mindset. And so if it changes your mindset, it changes how you behave.
Mhm. And the key that you said was intentional,
Mhm.
because I tell people all the time, "You've got to be intentional." And you're right. It's I joke with people that now that I'm going through perimenopause, I go with my first thought and I just don't worry about it. And then sometimes I don't, but it's written all over my face.
Right.
And so I have to intentionally still go to that second thought, right? And not immediately say it. And again, it's being intentional. It's changing the way we're looking at the money. It's changing how we're spending it or how we're investing it. Um, and it's making sure that kinda like our time, you know, a lot of times as entrepreneurs, we're constantly looking at, "Oh, I did so much today with the business. Okay, what'd you do to grow it?" And we start listing out the things, and we were busy, and we were working in the business,
Yeah.
okay? But we weren't doing anything to move the needle. So, I look at it kind of the same way. I go just like I look at my day and go, "Okay, what needle moving." I know I've got stuff in the business that I'm gonna be doing, right? Because my business, I know that. But what am I gonna be doing that's going to help make money, needle move those tasks, and what am I doing to make sure that I'm not spending more money without intentionality, that I'm keeping more, right? That I'm being successful. So those things go together, and I think this just again, it's being intentional, and we have to step into that CEO of not only our business but our life, because I find that if we're doing it in our business, a lot of times it carries over into our personal, hence the blue jeans. I didn't spend my business money on that, by the way, okay? That was money I'd paid myself that I then went and spent, so just for the record. And I have a quick the last questions I'm gonna ask, because and I really wanna get into this, and there's so many more things I want us to talk about, and there's not enough time. What are You have a two-number system. You've
I do.
mentioned it a couple of times.
Mhm.
Well, I don't know if anybody else is, but I'm curious, and it's just because, again, I love learning new things. I love numbers. Um, I love learning new things, and I love seeing how people do things differently. What are those 2 numbers? What are the 2 numbers that you believe everyone should be tracking, and why do they matter so much?
Okay. I love to talk about this. So what I'm going to back this up, and I'm going to say that two numbers are super
Mhm,
easy. Every
mhm,
business has them. Your first number is going to be how much is investment, real investment. And we quantify that by saying every dollar that I spend in the invest out of the invest bucket, we know brings us multiple dollars back for every dollar we spent. And that number is always a lot smaller than people think it is. So the first number is your invest number. And then your second number is going to be your spend, business spend or waste. Like I've come further and further and I just now call it waste because one client one day said to me, "Leanne, the dollars in this account, like basically it's like lighting them on fire. So can I just call it waste?" And I was like, "Sure," because that's really what it is. It's not we're not putting a moral judgment on the word waste. It's just that we're acknowledging that not those dollars, we do not expect them to do ROI for us. They do things like buy insurance for us. They do things like make truck payments, things like that. They are not. We're not going to fool ourselves that they are actually growing the business or growing the cash of the business, more importantly. So your two numbers are going to be invest and spend or waste. And then from there, we start to get really clear on understanding human and actual native behavior. So if you'll give me a second, I'm going to unpack this. My $1,100,000 disaster story, that company was a software company. And so I came from software. And what I knew is that there's this thing in software called native behavior. Native behavior is what you will do on your phone or on a screen without being taught or coached or disciplined. It's just what you're going to do. And so every human being has native behavior with money. And it looks like this. We pick up our cell phone. We push the bank app. And while we're waiting for the numbers to load, we're asking ourselves one question. And that question is, how much is in there, or how much do I have left to spend? This is the native behavior with money. So the 2-number method works in a way where we have business owners actually have separate bank accounts for invest and spend. And we let the business checking accounts actually do the budgeting instead of a spreadsheet or instead of willpower. Because the native behavior of all of your listeners is, how much do I have left to spend? And so when we fund our invest amounts and all of a sudden those investments start going out, we stay within this parameter of what we decided to invest and spend. And when the bank accounts get low, spending should stop. So there's more nuance to it than that. But really, all a person is now doing is managing their business profitably with 2 numbers. So I know a manufacturer that I've worked with. His 2 numbers are, every single week he needs $26,000 to invest, and he needs $6,000 going to his waste. I know a guy who owns a security company, and every 2 weeks for him, he needs $14,000 for invest and $1,500 in waste. And so we actually put those dollars into those accounts, and then the business owner goes and does what they do. We can't teach people budgeting. They won't do it. It's completely contrary to human nature, especially a business owner. So I find that if I can just help a business owner look at their phone, which is already native, and the bank balance is actually showing how much they have left to spend, then they've put this guardrails on profitability for their business. And we only pull into operations what the business owner needs to pull into operations. And believe it or not, I find that people go one of 2 directions with their waste account. I'll say to them, all right, so you're putting $6,000 every week into your waste account. So you can safely spend that account down to 0. You can buy office supplies with it. You can do, as long as you don't overdraw this account, you can spend it down. And I find that people either go, I love that, I can spend every dollar here, and Leanne says it won't hurt my business. Or people go, what? I don't want to do that. And so because we gave them permission to spend it and the money is sitting there, sometimes they play a game with themselves of like, I don't want to spend that all. I want to play a game to win and keep that money in there. Both of them are good. Both of them work, but it's just up to the individual how they handle their waste spending in their business. So that's the 2 numbers. It's waste and invest.
I love that. So I have a question. The invest, just for the listeners to understand, you mean investing back into the business, meaning like a coach or like a VA, that kind of thing, right?
Yes. Yes. So we have the business owner decide, okay, with every single item in your business, we call it the yes test. Every single item, you're going to decide, does this line item actually bring me multiple dollars back for every dollar I spend? We'll pick on your VA. Lisa, does your VA and paying your VA bring you multiple dollars back for every dollar you spend with him or her?
Absolutely.
So that's an invest. That's an investment. So we would put that in your invest budget.
Okay.
So we're not talking about investing like, this is the money that I send to Schwab.
Right.
This is
Right.
my 401k.
I knew you were talking about that, but I wanted to make sure that everybody did it. You do it similar to what I do. I use the profit first methodology, except I add a sassy twist to it. I don't like having people open up all the accounts, and I don't think all the accounts are necessary right away because, one, business owners will get overwhelmed very easily. However, so I add a sassy twist to it, and I like how you have this because, and I haven't seen it that way, so I really do love the way you do that. We create what I call a money roadmap, and again, that's to help see the cash flow part. So
Yeah.
in all counts, people could say it's a budget, but I'm not putting them on a budget. What we're doing is we're pulling the information. Yes, monthly expenses is listed on a spreadsheet. Yes, yearly expenses are listed on a tab. But that's so we know when shit is due, people, okay? Whether it's an investment or not.
Yeah.
That's just so your brain goes, oh, okay. Because again, I do a yearly savings. I want bucket money going into that yearly savings because I cannot tell you how many business owners, especially brick and mortars, who have employees who all of a sudden have to pay their liability insurance and do not have the money.
Yeah.
And it's due once a year. Look, same thing with personal. I live in a state that I got to pay property taxes on a vehicle every single year. I'm not going to have $500 to $800 laying around in my account to go and spend on it because my brain's going to say if there's any money left over in that account, I can go spend it.
Right.
That's how our brains work.
It is.
So I have multiple buckets. I have a bucket for my vehicle and I make sure money is going in there intentionally every single month so that I have the money when that comes due. And so you do it very similar. Yes, and in some ways it's the same way. I'm making sure cuz I mean I think it's a waste to pay property taxes on a vehicle if we're all honest.
Yes.
And I also know that if I wanna drive my vehicle and not get pulled over and lose my license, so I got that sticker that says I'm legit, then I gotta pay it. So I wanna make sure I have money over there in that account to pay it. And so it's very similar. I mean, we think on the same line. And again, having this information helps you be able to see the true cash flow, okay, of where we're at, what you're gonna need this month, next month, and in the future. We also look at what you're wanting to add, those kind of things. And so I like how you do this. I do. It's adding an extra sass to it, honestly. And so I was curious to see if what it was and if it was very similar. And I love that you have those two separate buckets. A lot of people normally laugh at me when or go, "What? You have how many accounts?" I'm like,
I
listen,
know.
my brain works, okay?
Yep.
I don't ask how much money I have left. I can go into my bank account and I go to see what revenues come out. I go to look at the operating to see what expenses went out to make sure that someone didn't screw up and pull out more than they should have. Making sure I didn't screw up, that I had my cash flow right, and then I'm looking at the other accounts to see where I'm at, right? The
Right.
same way with my personal. I have multiple savings accounts for specific things. And again, I'm moving money there. I even have a Lisa spending account. And y'all, I created that because of those things. And if Lisa doesn't have if there's not enough money in that account, Lisa doesn't go spend.
Mhm.
My brain, nope, that money is for the vacation because that's why it's in the vacation. Is there enough money to go get what you want? Yes. Oh, okay, cool. Then you can go buy them. If not, nope, you're going to wait. It's not being restrictive. It's me deciding where I want the money to go, right? And me
Absolutely.
putting and how much I'm willing to put in there. Now, can you change it at a given time of what's more priority later on? Absolutely. That's the beauty of it. But again, it's contradiction what everybody's always said. We've been taught that budget is constrictive. Well, I don't look at it as a budget. I look at it as a money roadmap. Again, I'm not going to go anywhere I don't know or am familiar with without a GPS. So this is a money roadmap so I can help GPS be the GPS for where I want my money to go. So I'm not throwing it at all the things that we see that we decide we want. So I love that. It's an eye opener, right?
It is.
Like when you do that, it's an eye opener because now to me, it's you're taking your control back and you're like, oh, okay, I get to decide. I decide how much is this and how much is that. And then I get to decide, okay, if I'm going to go all the way down or no, you know what? I actually want to move some of that money out. That's not how much money I want in there. It's
Right.
kind of similar to what I've done with the meals. When people realize how much money they spend out to eat, they're like, I'm like, and again, we can add it to the money roadmap and make sure there's an account and this is how much we're allocating in that business spend account. However, is that how much money you want to be spending a month on office supplies or going out to eat and buying for your team? No, absolutely not. Okay, well then how much is what you want to spend? Because now we've given them permission. It's your money. If you want to do it, great. If not, how much is it? And 9 to 10 times, majority of the people don't want to spend as much money as they're spending. They just don't realize how much they're spending
No.
because we're in a tap society. I mean, we tap. We don't have this shows my age. I used to have to go to the ATM and pull the money to go. Okay. We didn't have the debit cards. Okay.
Right.
We didn't
Right.
have hell, I don't remember when we didn't have ATM cards. Okay. We had to go deposit the bank. We had to do a thumbprint they had to have a thumbprint on file to be able to see that it was us. And we had to cash the check and then we had to tell them we wanted money. So if it was on a weekend, guess what? You were out of
You're
luck
stuck.
because you weren't getting it. And then when the ATM came, we just thought we were golden. And I remember, I think it was McDonald's was the first, and I don't even eat there, but McDonald's was the first one that took the ATM card as a payment. And the rest of the places you had to go. And that was the beginning of the debit card. That was the
That was the
beginning
beginning.
of that was the beginning. Now, I love my debit card. I love my credit cards. However, we again have to be intentional. You have to be smart with it. You can't we have to be taught and we need to understand that it doesn't work the way society tells us it does.
Oh, no.
It's
Not even a little bit.
No, not remotely, right? Leanne, I absolutely love this conversation. And again, I had probably y'all like 5 or 6 more questions, and we are out of time.
Oh, we're
Okay?
out of time.
No,
It's been
we are
lovely.
completely out of time. I'm going to have you back on
My
because I
pleasure.
literally, y'all, I have like 6 more. Like I do an outline of the things I want to talk about, and I have like 6 more. Thank you for being on the show. This has
My
been such
pleasure.
an eye-opening conversation. Where can listeners connect with you, and can you share more about I think it's the Profit Paradox Guide, so that they can start transforming their money today?
They can connect with me at profitwithleanne.com. It's the kind of the gateway to learning about the 2-number method and the profit shift and things like that we do. And then the Profit Paradox Guide that you're mentioning is found at gift.profitwithleanne.com. And what it does is it actually goes through several of the paradoxes that we talked about here today, like you can solve all of your cash flow problems by making more money. And it actually gives people some directions on how to quickly begin to evaluate whether it's invest or spend. So it's kind of like an entry point. And so the guide is out there and it's at gift.profitwithleanne.com.
I love it. I love it. And for my
Lovely to be here.
listeners, thank you for coming. And for my listeners, if you're making money but you're not feeling wealthy, then it's time to change that. Book a wealth alignment call with me, and let's look at what's really happening with your cash flow, your profit leaks, and your systems so that your money feels supportive instead of stressful. Because I don't know about y'all, but I don't like being stressed. The link for my stuff and for Leanne's will be in the show notes. And until next time, remember, as I always say, confidence and cash are the ultimate power duo. Go check in with your money. And as always, have a fantastic and wealthy day. Till next time.